Okay, guys. Well, good afternoon again. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being here. And it's Monday, May the 10th. Today, we're getting into our review sessions for this class to get prepared for our final exam that's next week. So welcome back, everybody. Sorry that I established the stream a little bit later, right up close to the 1 p.m. Class time than usual. I was just dealing with different office tasks, and I had a lot of students that came to ask certain questions in the office hours. So not to worry though, here we are. And hey everybody, good to see you guys. Feel free to leave behind any kind of comment or say hello while we're here. Now, 1 second, just doing something here in another window. Double checking on something of mine. I'm pulling up our study guide so that we can refer to it together and then go over as much of the material right now as we can together. So just 2 seconds, guys. Sorry for my delay. Okay. Good. All right, yeah, so to everybody here, thanks again for being at the meeting and for sticking through another semester. I know it's tough during a pandemic, but you guys are going to have some very interesting stories to tell later in life when you're telling your kids, grandkids, and everything how you're going through college during global pandemic. I always look back at the Spanish flu from like 1918, and I always used to think, or the bubonic plague, of Europe, and I thought how difficult it would have been to live through something like that. Isn't it nice that we don't have to deal with that? Well, I guess now we can add that to our life experience. But anyway, guys, it's been a long, productive semester, and I'm glad that we're here at the end. So let's just jump right in to the topics on the study guide. I'm pulling it up from my copy that I sent to you guys. So if you haven't yet had a chance to do that, make sure that you go to Titanium or to your inbox, Outlook, and find the study guide, because that's what we're going to refer to, and that's what's going to guide our meeting today. So the announcement I sent out to you guys, that was 4 days ago, I guess, Thursday sometime, and the document's labeled CT Final Study Guide 2021. CT capitalized stands for critical thinking. All right, so my copy of it is open, and you guys will notice this when you look at the study guide, that the first half of it is like the same as the midterm study guide because it's a cumulative test, so the same questions and information are still eligible on the final. And then I've added to that the remaining information for the second half of the class. So we're going to try our best to go over all the information here as a group. The way that I usually prefer to have review sessions run is to have students, for the most part, take the lead, and then I come in and assist as necessary whenever I think something's off track or if I could clarify or correct anything. So that's the plan right now as well. Let me ask you, what do you think? Shall we start from the first half and then finish on Thursday with the second half? Or would you prefer to do it in the reverse order? I was thinking just starting at the top from the very beginning. If that's agreeable to you, then let's proceed in that way. But I don't know if there were strong opinions in the other direction. Okay, cool. That sounds good, Edward. Thanks for volunteering your opinion on that. So I'm looking at the study guide, and you should have yours open too. And I'm looking at the first set of questions from Chapter 8. Chapter 8 was the chapter having to do with logic and argument. What is deduction? What is induction? So we're going way back to the beginning, everyone. And when I ask a question that's on the study guide, try your best to supply an answer, and then we're just going to move on to the next. Okay, so question is this. What is either a good or a bad critical thinker? Thinking back to the very beginning of this semester and our earliest notes, what is a good critical thinker? What is a bad critical thinker? Someone tell me that. So we're done with all of our learning in the first place. Now we're just trying to remember. So question is that. Let me know when you think you got it. The whole point of this class is to try and be a good critical thinker. So what even is that? Good critical thinkers are people that what? So it's interactive. You only get as much done as you can support me with. So go ahead. Trying to make efficient use of the time. Takes a little while sometimes to get the ball rolling, but once you're warmed up and good to go, then it happens pretty fast. But we do have to jump in. So what's a good critical thinker, or if you want, what's a bad critical thinker, or both? Because that's the first question on the study guide from chapter 8. I don't know if you're waiting for someone else to talk. Okay, Harry. Good critical thinker. A person who will not believe a claim unless it is based on good evidence or a good argument. And when making claims to others, they provide good evidence and good arguments to support it. Exactly. So that is the definition of a good critical thinker. The sort of person that doesn't just believe things for no good reason. When they believe things, they have to be based on good evidence or arguments. When they make claims to other people, they always make sure to produce good evidence or arguments to support those claims. But that's only half of what I asked, which is good. Let me ask if anyone will tell me the rest. What's a bad critical thinker? It's much similar definition, just to the reverse. So someone tell me that. A bad critical thinker, on the other hand, is what other type of person? So since you already see the good kind, your memory should kick in, if nothing else. You should be able to tell me what's a bad critical thinker too. Yeah, so bad critical thinker. The question says, what is good / bad? So you need both. I have no idea. I mean, you got to just say it. Otherwise, it's never going to be told, and you'll just have a waste of time. What's a bad critical thinker? Okay, there you go, Danny. A person that will believe claims that are not based on good reason or arguments. Yes. There's one little extra element, though. As you see above with Harry's definition, there's this part about providing information. So a bad critical thinker is someone who will blindly believe in something even if there's no good evidence or argument behind that belief. Correct. But let's not forget the part about sending information out. Also, Mick, they don't provide good reasons or arguments to support their own claims. Okay, good. So one part is when the information's incoming, a bad critical thinker doesn't even scrutinize it. They just believe it whether it's based on good reasons or not. And when the information is outgoing, when you're the one presenting info to others, making claims, if you're a bad critical thinker, you don't have the ability to defend those claims with reasons or arguments. Okay, so we want to be good critical thinkers, not bad. Next up, here's a question. What is an argument? I'm asking you what's an argument in the formal sense as defined by logic and critical thinking, not, you know, like my parents getting upset with each other kind of argument. What is a logical argument? It's a set of things, and you'll tell me it's a set of how many of those things and what the parts are. So let's go. What's an argument? Okay, Danny. You're saying it is a set of two or more sentences where one of the sentences is the conclusion and all the other sentences are premises. Perfect. Yes, that's correct. Same to you, Cecilia. So whenever you have an argument, you have multiple sentences. It's never just one. And that is because in every single argument, you have one conclusion and then at least one premise. Now, let's talk about those parts of the argument. Let's drill down a little further. What is the definition of a conclusion of a logical argument? What is the conclusion, in other words? The conclusion is the sentence or statement. Hey, Diego, Star-Lord, what's up? Yeah, so the conclusion of an argument is which piece? Tell me about the nature of a conclusion. What is a conclusion? Because the next question says, what are the parts of an argument? So now we'll go into the parts. So specifically, the conclusion is the statement that what? What is the conclusion of an argument? Sorry, I'm going to close my inbox there. Chime. Okay, so J, the proposition in an argument that is supported on the basis of other propositions. Yes, but what's the point of having a conclusion? You're trying to what? What you say is correct, Jay, but it's missing some essential facts. It's supported by the other propositions, but why are you trying to support it? Because you're trying to do what? I'm going to close the window. When I come back, this definition should be in the chat, okay? Don't let me come back and it's still like nothing there. Come on, man. What happened? I restate the thesis or topic? Don't know what you mean. Sorry, Jay, no. Or are you asking me to restate the question? The question is, what is the conclusion of an argument? Now, you say it's the proposition that's supported on the basis of other propositions, but there's a bigger picture here. You're trying to make an argument. What's the whole point of making any argument? In order to demonstrate what about this conclusion? The conclusion of the argument? You got to say it. I mean, I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to say it or go back to your notes because it's been taught to you. Anna, a conclusion is a statement, an argument that indicates what the arguer is trying to convince the reader or listener. Yes, that's right. But I would love it if you were a little more comfortable using the term truth. You're trying to demonstrate or prove that the conclusion is true. So the conclusion of the argument is the sentence that you're trying to show to be true. Okay, now what are the premises? Conclusion is the sentence that you're trying to show is true. As you put it, Anna, convince the reader or listener, convince them of what? Convince them it's true. What are the premises then? The premises of the argument are what? In relationship to the conclusion, the premises serve what role? Now, Jay and others, you kind of indirectly said it, but let's say it now very clearly and just explicitly. The premises of the argument are to do what? Yes, premises, definition. What's premises? There's 26 of you guys, come on. What are the premises of an argument? 27. What are the premises of an argument? Danny, the premises are reasons that support the conclusion, right? They're the reasons or the evidence that give backing to the conclusion, okay? So don't ever forget that for the rest of your life. The conclusion of an argument is the sentence you're trying to prove to be true, and the premises of an argument are the sentences that are given as evidence or support for the conclusion. Okay, next up, as we go through the list. So we make these arguments to try and show that the conclusion is true. Next, we have to ask, what does this word truth mean? So what does it mean when a proposition or a sentence is true? What is truth? So what's that? What's truth? This is big. I mean, it's fundamental. What does it mean when a sentence is true? Okay, Kenya. It's when what the sentence says matches the facts of reality. Yes, that's right. Someone write down a true sentence and put it in the chat. That's also correct. Good, Danny. So truth is about a match between facts and whatever the sentence says. Okay, so like tell me something that's true, that's obviously true. Because I see you have the definition, I'm just asking you to apply it one time to make sure that it means something to you. Today is Monday, I am a human, Earth is a planet, there are 365 days in a year. Well, there's leap years, Hannah, and there's 366, so I don't know. Earth is a planet though, I am wearing glasses, fair enough. Okay, I like, you guys always refer to glasses because that was my original example. I gave you that example though just because it's something convenient, because it's like you can see I'm wearing the glasses and I don't have to like prove it. But there's a lot of things that are true that don't have anything to do with this class meeting. Like, I don't know, the Eiffel Tower is in Paris, or the planet Earth is the third planet from the sun. Anyway, yeah, so facts are things that are true, but there's a lot of false information too. Like if I say to you that I was 6 feet tall, you know, like a lot of guys that are like my height, 5'9", they'll just sort of exaggerate their height. Well, I would be saying something false. I'm not actually 6 feet tall. I'm like 5'9", maybe 5'10", but I'm not quite up to 6. So anyway, then I would say something false if I said, hey, I'm 6'1". that's a statement, but it doesn't match the actual measurable height of my body. So true statements match the world and the facts. False statements don't. Sometimes we say false things on purpose. That's lying or deceiving. Sometimes we say it because we don't know what's true, and that's just misinformation. Okay, so we continue from there. What is a belief? What does it mean to believe a sentence? And this kind of piggybacks off of the term truth. So that's a little hint, I guess. But what does it mean to believe a sentence? Okay, good. It's when you think something's true. Exactly. When you think that the statement is true, that means you believe it. So I guess you believe that the earth is round, unless you're one of those weirdos that thinks that it's flat, but I'm assuming you don't think that. What you believe, though, is kind of up to your judgment based on the facts and the evidence that you have. Some people believe there's God, some people don't. Some people believe that, I don't know, JFK was killed by, what was the guy's name? Lee Harvey Oswald, and other people think that's a conspiracy and that wasn't really the case. Anyway, beliefs are what you think happens to be true. And a belief in the best case scenario would be correct, but sometimes they're false. That's when you have a false belief. Okay, next up, when we have arguments, the conclusion is prefaced often with a word, like a conclusion indicator word, they call it. So what are some different examples of conclusion indicator words? Let me hear if you can remember that. Words like what? Very good. Yes, therefore, thus. Those are two of the big ones, therefore and thus. Any others? A couple more I know of. Maybe you can remember a few more too. I don't know if, Jay, we shouldn't use overall. No, overall is not one of them, because overall it could be like a summary, but it's not precise enough to state that it means a conclusion. But in conclusion would be fine. Edward, the word this, no, I think maybe you meant to write thus. But yeah, thus is one of them. Hence would be another fair example, sure, hence. So, I don't know, Jones's fingerprints were on the murder weapon. He was known to have owned this item. It was used in the commission of the crime. Therefore, he's the killer, or hence he's the killer, or thus he is the killer. There's also, it follows that. There's the old Latin ergo. So hence, thus, therefore, it follows that. Consequently, in conclusion. These are all conclusion indicator words. Okay, cool. So then next, some premise indicator words. Let's ask this. What are some premise indicator words? These are words which you would say or write before stating evidence for something. So these are like evidence type words. Okay, very good. Yeah, Hannah. Because, since. So like because he had messages from someone saying let's meet up while I was out of town. Therefore, I conclude that he's cheating on me. Right, so because of these reasons, therefore I reached this conclusion, or since I saw these text messages, it follows that he's holding some secrets from me. Or given that would be another one. Good, Dimitri. Given that my, let's say, car door was smashed, and given that my guitar was missing from inside, it follows that they must have broken into the car to steal that item, you know. So I'm like stating information which leads me to a conclusion. Due to the fact would also be one. Yes, Edward. Due to the fact that nobody else knew where I was going to be, and due to the fact that my house was robbed when I left, I concluded that this person who knew I would be gone was the thief. I don't know, like that's maybe not a perfect example, but you understand the kind of genre of examples that I'm giving you. Given that, due to the fact that, because of this, since this, we thus conclude something else. Okay, so those are all good examples of premise indicator words. Because, since, given that, due to the fact that, on account of, for the reason that. Okay, next I'm asking you, what is an imperative sentence? So what kind of sentence is an imperative, and maybe you could give an example. Let me know about that, because there are different types of sentences in language, and they serve different functions and roles. So what is an imperative and what is its role? If you can give me an example or tell me what kind of statement it is, or sentence that it is. Okay, good, they're commands, yeah. What's an example of a command? Let's see you issue a command. There's so many to choose from. What do you think? What's your fave? Commands like, for example, run. Just a single word. Okay, yeah, run. You're telling the person to run. Maybe that's something you'd say if, you know, shots were ringing out or something. Close the door. Okay, it's a little bit too much of a breeze. You want this person to close the door, so you just instruct them to do it. Hey, command you to close the door. Close the door. Run. Close the door. Get over here. Like from Mortal Kombat when you would use Scorpion and pull someone over with the whatever. I don't even know what that thing is, but yeah, I'm thinking of a video game. Okay, get over here. Close the door. Run. Be quiet. Get on the ground, you know, whatever it is. Those are all in the realm of imperatives. So next, what's an interrogative sentence? What kind of sentence is an interrogative? And maybe you can hit me with a few examples of that too. Just asking what type of statement, sentence, etc. is an interrogative, not an imperative, but an interrogative. What about that? Okay, those are questions, correct, yes. So there's no shortage of examples. Any sentence that ends with the question mark. Can you throw a few questions out there? I guess I just asked one. Can you ask a question? Is itself a question. But anyway, aside from that one, tea or coffee? Well, okay, I get it, right? Is that a dog? I guess asked to someone who has an ambiguous pet. Okay, yeah, paper or plastic, tea or coffee? Why should I? Right, I guess you could ask this question to someone in response to a directive that they give to you. Yeah, what day is it? What is my name? Where do I live? How old am I? I'm asking questions that probably people should know their own answers to. Can I borrow a pen? Yes. Okay, fair enough. I think that's clear. So we move to the next, asterotoric sentence. What kind of statement or sentence is an asterotoric sentence? Let's hear about that one. So to have an asterotoric sentence, what does that mean? It is a sentence. Well, wait, no, sorry, Danny, you wrote the wrong word. You wrote neither. The word is either. It's the opposite. It would be to say neither. So let us. Maybe can you delete your own comment because I just don't want it to like appear with wrong information. So here's what we'll do. Write it again. Just correct the edit the spelling of the one word. You're right there. You just have one letter off. Either instead of neither. So go ahead, write it again. Unless someone else can do it first. Okay, good. A sentence that is either true or false. That's clear, right? Because neither true or false, that would mean that it's got like no truth value. Like that would be like saying like just something that has no truth value, like not even a claim. Like if I just say blue, it's neither true nor false because it's not asserting anything. But anyway, yeah, an actual assertion is a sentence that has a truth value. So it's one of the two. It's either true or it is false. So these are just claims of any kind. So go ahead and write out an assertion. Somebody write one. Assert something, which may be a true assertion or it might be false. But at least make a claim. Go ahead. Let me see some. So just some assertions. Let those populate the chat for a minute. Get a couple of them in the live stream. 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, correct. Yes, that's one example. Elephants are big. Well, baby elephants, not that big, but yeah, I guess even a baby elephant is pretty big to be fair enough. Okay, correct. Even if it was false, though, it would still be an assertion. What if I say elephants are small? That would be an assertion. It would just be a false one. Or if I say 2 + 2 = 7, that would be a claim, but it would be a false claim. Okay, lots of examples all across the board. Biden is president. Let's see. A Chinese rocket just crashed into the Indian Ocean upon re-entry to the Earth's atmosphere. And we could keep going. The Earth is round. Yeah. All right. Or is it a cube? I mean, who knows? Yeah, so just kidding. Okay, so next up, I need you to tell me what is the definition of a deductively valid argument. It's a key question because 100% is going to be on the test. No doubt about that. I will ask you this, so let's make sure you know what is a deductively valid argument. The words if then figure into the correct definition. So you can let me know. There's something about the premises and the conclusion and the word truth. But definition of deductive validity. What does this mean if an argument is deductively valid? Okay, so Hannah, if all of the premises are true, then the conclusion must also be true. Yes, that's right. So for it to be a deductively valid argument, it means that if we assume the premises are true, like if we suppose they were, then they would guarantee that the conclusion is as well. Okay, so let me look here what's next. Yeah, so a deductively valid argument. And so I'm going to write out two different deductively valid arguments here. And this will hopefully expose more clarity to the concept. So okay, so all fish can swim. A trout is a fish. What would be the conclusion of this argument? Just to make sure that you can follow the logic. The premises, you see them there. All fish can swim, premise one. Second premise, trout is a fish. And so, therefore what? Just the conclusion should say what? Therefore, a trout can swim. Okay, good. Okay, now let me put another argument below, and we'll just try and see a little difference, but okay, one argument is here. Here's another one. It says all humans can swim. Michael Phelps is a human. So therefore, let's say the conclusion just says that, therefore, you could piece this together, right? Therefore, Michael Phelps can swim. Okay, so look at the two arguments. You see that they have a similar format and structure, just a little bit different information. They're both deductively valid. They're both deductively valid because if you just look at the premises and assume they're true, then the conclusion has to be true because of those premises, right? So if it were the case that all fish can swim, and if it was the case that a trout is a fish, then that would lead to the conclusion that a trout can swim, just as with this. But now, this example or pair of examples will help us with the next concept. So I'm asking you another question on the list. Tell me, what does it mean for an argument to be sound? What does it mean for an argument that's deductive to be sound? What's a sound argument? So let me know the definition of soundness. Sound, what is that? Anna, you say true. No, that's not precise enough. You have to say a little bit more what is true in a sound argument. Hannah, you say a sound argument is a deductively valid argument with all true premises. Now there you go. So for an argument to be sound, two things must happen. First of all, it has to be valid in terms of its form. But on top of that, it has to have premises that are really actually true in real life. So, question, is this argument sound? The top one here. The one that says all fish can swim, a trout is a fish, and so therefore a trout can swim. Is this a sound argument? The top argument. So if you've seen the definition of soundness, then apply it to my question. Is that sound? Is that a valid argument with all true premises? Yes, good, Ray, it is, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all fish can swim. I mean, they live in water, so what? There's the mud skipper fish, I guess. That's one that kind of sometimes temporarily goes up onto the surface of the land, and it can walk around on the land, but they can swim too. So anyway, this is valid and it is sound because the premises are true on top of it being valid formally. What about the argument here, the bottom one? The other one that says all humans can swim and Michael Phelps is a human and therefore he can swim. Is that sound or not? So the one below, sound or no? Sound, yes or no, the second one. Okay, good, Hannah. You're right. It's not. And it's not sound because it says all humans can swim, the first premise, which is not actually true. There are some, in fact, many people that never do learn how to swim. And so this argument is valid. It's valid because the conclusion does logically follow from the premises as given, but it's not sound because it's not true that every single premise is really a fact. Michael Phelps is a human, that is true. But premise one is not. And so in order for it to be sound, every single premise would have to be like correct in the real world. Okay, so I hope that's clear enough for you guys. Valid and sound, valid but not sound because of the false premise, premise one. Okay, so let's continue then from there. Next, I'd ask, what is an inductively strong argument? What is an inductively strong argument? So let me know the definition of an inductively strong one. Inductively strong, not deductively valid, but inductively strong. So instead of deduction, induction. What's the pattern of an inductive argument? Or what's the way that we define it? Yes, inductive. Okay, there you go. Thanks, Hannah. If all the premises are true, then the conclusion is highly likely to be true. Okay, good. So the difference between that definition and the deductive validity definition is that with validity, we say that if the premises are true, the conclusion has to be. Not just that it probably is, but it must be. With induction, though, the premises only establish that the conclusion is probable, but they cannot absolutely guarantee it. Okay, so can you think of any type of argument which has a probable conclusion, but it's not a given? Like it's not absolutely certain that this conclusion would be true? Let me see some example of an inductively strong argument here from somebody. Let me know. So you see that that definition is an argument where there are premises that lead to a likely conclusion, but not a guaranteed conclusion. So what can you dream up for that? Lots of examples, but it just has to come from you. So you'll let me know. So like the pattern you're trying to think of right now is a set of premises, oftentimes that establish that something has been happening a certain way for a long time, and then a conclusion that simply asserts that that will be seen again in the next case. So just trying to help you remember or to think about it, but I can't type for you, so you have to type. Take your time, but you know, it's your time. Okay, there you go, Anna. The sun has risen for billions of years, therefore the sun will rise tomorrow. Yes, although when you write arguments, you should try to write them in standard form. I know it's hard to do it in this chat, but if you were writing it on the test or something, then you'd have the conclusion separate from the premise, and a line would separate the two. That's one example. Good. How about a different one that's not the sun? Because I know that's one that I gave you. It's just kind of cookie cutter. Can you create one that is of your own invention? Something different. Let's try another one, but that's good. That's like a classic example. But I like it when people don't just, let's say, memorize things they've heard, but think about the concept and then they apply it, because that's the whole point, right? You're supposed to be able to apply the concept like throughout your whole life going forward, not just what do I have to write on one test and then I can forget about it. So let me hear another example of an inductively strong argument. And just, the conclusion is something probable. Conclusion is probable based off the premises, but we can't say it's a certain thing. Just go ahead, just jump right in, just fire away. Go ahead, shoot, hit me with that answer. You gotta help me get it in. Okay, your phone has been working for the last year. Okay, so that's something to say. And then what? Therefore, what follows from that, or could follow from that? So therefore, it'll still work tomorrow. Okay, fair enough. There you go. And Danny, I wake up early every day. So I wake up every day. Therefore, I'll wake up tomorrow. Danny, for your example, though, you need to say it in terms of what has happened, because otherwise it just sounds like a categorical assertion. I wake up every day. You should say instead, like, I have woken up every day for whatever. How long have you been alive? 18 years? 19? So you would say, I've woken up every day for 19 years, therefore I'll wake up tomorrow. Otherwise, it just sounds like a blanket claim. I always wake up, which sounds more like deduction. Okay, Edward, leaves fall from trees for every autumn. So this autumn leaves will fall again. And Edward, similar kind of comment to you would be to specify the duration of time going back. So you would say, like, leaves have fallen from trees for every autumn over the past million years. I don't know, whatever like duration that you want to put as the time frame. Then your conclusion will appear very strong, because it's based on not just one case or two, but however many years, millions of years that we've had that same pattern. Okay, good. All right, good. Thanks, guys. Just helping you understand. So next, let's talk about disjunctive syllogism. So there are these different forms of deductively valid argument. Before I move on, I'll say one last thing about induction. Sometimes there are weak inductive arguments. Like if something just happened once randomly and then someone predicts that it will happen again, that would be inductively weak. Or if there's no like logical connection between the evidence and the conclusion. So if I say I wore black today and Biden changed the rules on, let's see, transgender citizens' access to the healthcare system. And so if I wear black next Monday, he'll make another major policy announcement that has to do with the trans community. Well, my choice of wardrobe was not at all relevant to his decision-making process. So there's no like pattern here that we can say is going to continue to happen. Anyway, so just inductively weak arguments, like if I found $1 on the ground one day out of the year and then thought I'm going to find another one tomorrow, that's not enough of a solid base of evidence to judge that this is probable. Okay, so next though, disjunctive syllogism. There's these 4 different forms of deductively valid argument that we studied. And the first one that the question on the list asks about is disjunctive syllogism. So go ahead if you can, and in the chat, simply provide the form of a disjunctive syllogism. So you could like number 1 dot and then like how the first premise would look, 2 dot and how the second premise would look, and maybe C dot for the conclusion so that you can write out all the parts. So how does the disjunctive syllogism go? Someone will just tell me that. Disjunctive syllogism, I mean, there's only a few options for you. So process of elimination or just memory or notes or book, however you're going to get it, you're going to put it in the chat. So then it'll be on the record. What's a disjunctive syllogism? It is, well, no, Diane. A disjunction is an either-or sentence, but a disjunctive syllogism is an argument which has multiple sentences in it. So you're right only in the sense that a disjunction is an either-or sentence. But I'm asking you a bigger question. What is a disjunctive syllogism, which contains a disjunction, but it's more than just the one sentence? So tell me overall, what is a disjunctive syllogism, and write the whole form out. Disjunction is a singular. It's like one sentence. A disjunctive syllogism is an argument which has multiple sentences, okay? So Jay, you say a type of deductive argument by elimination in which the premises present only two alternatives. Right, yes. But, you know, I'm still asking you to just write the argument out. Like write an actual example. Or the form. So, I mean, you're giving a definition, but you're not actually applying it. Apply the definition and just write what that is. Write an argument by elimination, which has an either-or sentence in it, and just show us the form. Okay, so Hannah, you have, I will study business or biology, not business, and therefore I will study biology. Okay, like that's the kind of form, yeah, well, that's like an example of the form. I was hoping at first that someone would just write the form in terms of like A's and B's and like that kind of stuff. And then we could have filled in the blanks with an actual example which substitutes information and content for like the variables A and B. But anyway, that's the right type of example, Hannah. You start with one sentence that's a disjunction, which says this or that for two things. The second premise then eliminates one of them. And then the conclusion is the other one that was not eliminated. The other thing I would say this to you, Hannah, and to anyone else, you have to get out of the habit of not writing a complete sentence. Too many examples have come into me where someone says like not blank. This is not a full grammatical sentence. Like if you go to order food, you can't say not tacos. You would say I don't want to order tacos, right? So anyway, and it's the same with you, Yvonne. Either I eat carrots or apples today. How about let's change the second sentence to I will not eat carrots, you know. Not carrots doesn't mean you won't eat them. It could mean they don't exist, or you've never heard of them, or something else. And Hannah, not business. Does not business mean no such thing as business, or does it mean, you could be specific, so I'm not going to study business, or you could have made it a little more creative. Business has become criminalized, or something was made illegal, therefore I'm going to do biology. Okay, anyway, I'm just being a little bit pedantic, but these are fine examples, and Hannah, the form that you listed there is correct. So, disjunctive syllogism, it's of this type of form. A disjunction which says either A or B for some A and B. Then a second premise which eliminates one of them, say not A, therefore B. And another possibility is when we eliminate the other disjunct. And if we do that, then we have the reverse conclusion. So in this case, not B, therefore A. That's the other possible outcome. Okay. All right. So disjunctive syllogism, that's one. Now to the next, modus ponens. What's the format of modus ponens? Let's hear that one. Modus ponens. So this is one of the hypothetical syllogisms. There are three members of the hypothetical syllogism family or whatever. Modus ponens was the first one we learned. So let me know, how does modus ponens go, aka affirming the antecedent? Modus ponens. Okay, good, Hannah. So if A, then B, A, therefore B. Now here's the thing though, Hannah. Let us not number the conclusion with a number 3, not correct, because that makes it seem as if it's part of the same series as the premises, which it's not. It's a different part of the argument, it's the conclusion. So you should list the conclusion with the letter C instead of the number 3. Does that make sense? Otherwise, it seems like it's the third premise, but it's not. There's 2 premises, and to designate that the premises are not the same thing as the conclusion, we'll number the premises, but not the conclusion. Okay, so good. If A, then B, A, therefore B. And this is how that would appear on the page. Modus ponens. Okay, so that's modus ponens. Yeah, no problem. And this first premise of modus ponens is what's called a hypothetical, or some call it a conditional. With a conditional, there are 2 parts of it, and let me just make sure that this is something you remember. Who remembers what is the first part of the conditional, the part that says if A? The name of that, the formal name in logic for the first half of the conditional or hypothetical, they sometimes call it synonymous terms. But what is that first if part, if A? This is known as which piece of the conditional? Because there's two parts. There's the if part and there's the then part. So I'm just trying to remind you about those things. Yes, that's right. So the if aspect is the antecedent. And the then part, do you remember what the other side is? The right-hand side, which says then be. So antecedent, that's right for the left side, the if portion. On the right-hand side, where it says then be, this is known as the what? Not the antecedent, but rather it is called the consequent. Exactly. That's right, Kenya and Hannah. So antecedent, consequent. Antecedent, what comes before. Consequent, what follows afterwards. Okay, so now that's the form. Someone give me a real example based off that form. So, you know, like just write another example like of English sentences where it fills in for A and B. Just utilizing this structure, generate one example if you can. So you'll start with an if-then claim, and so you got to think by starting about like that's the only part that involves any thought at all. Think of something that would cause something else, like if something happens, then this other thing would happen afterwards as a result, and then from there the remaining part is just automatic. So let me hear some example of a modus ponens argument. Okay, so Tahani, you say, well, that's one part of it though, but you got to write the whole thing. If I study for my test, then I will pass. And I think you would understand how it goes from there, right? If you want, go ahead and complete the argument, Tahani, while some others are thinking of other examples. And to others, go ahead and put them in here as well. So you're only on step one though so far. Danny, if I do homework, then I can sleep. I did my homework. Therefore, I can sleep. Okay, fair enough. That's a reasonable example. I guess you're that kind of person who doesn't want to sleep until you got your work done. So that makes sense to me. Tahani, though, you didn't do it. You didn't follow up. If I study for my test, then I will pass. And then after that, complete it. What's the rest? Because you have to be able to do that. So it's good for you to do it now so that when I do ask you this on the test, you will give me the right answer. So what's the remainder? Hannah, if I crash my car, I can't drive to work. I crashed my car, and therefore I can't drive to work. Okay, another clear example. If you do crash your car and it's your sole means of transportation, then that would mean based on that you couldn't drive to work. And supposing that that happened, then we get that conclusion. Okay, good. Another good example. Tahani, you're leaving me hanging though. What happened? You're not going to write another statement. You have to finish that. Okay, good. So if I study for my test, then I will pass. I studied and therefore I passed. Perfect, thank you. Okay, and Diane, if I eat too many sweets, then my teeth will hurt. I ate too many sweets and therefore your teeth do hurt. Okay, correct, all good. So just wanted to make sure that we can apply the concept to some real examples. Notice this though, sometimes people make an error when they're trying to do modus ponens because they switch up A and B, and that's wrong. So like if you wrote if A then B, B therefore A, that's not valid, okay? So you make sure that it proceeds in the given order here. The antecedent is affirmed in the second premise, and then the consequent is what the conclusion will be. Okay, that's modus ponens. What about its brother, sister, evil twin? I don't know which one I call it, modus tollens. So this is another member of the hypothetical syllogism family with some family resemblance, but a little different structure. So let me hear about it. What is modus tollens? First, let's go with the form. Then we'll proceed to some examples of that. So how's modus tollens work? Tollens. They call it denying the consequence sometimes. Okay. So what's that one like? Yeah, modus tollens. Okay, so Kenya, you're saying if A then B, not B, therefore not A. Yes, that's correct. Although, as I've said, let's try to label the conclusion with the letter C rather than the number 3. Okay, good. So that is modus tollens. I'll put it here as you wrote it. Not B, and therefore not A. Okay, so that's the correct form. They call it denying the consequent because of the second premise, which does deny the consequent term of the whole conditional, and then that implies the negation of antecedent too. So go ahead then and try to give a modus tollens example if you can. Just follow the form, and let's see what you can come up with. You could even take some of the modus ponens examples and just tweak them a little to get this form, or you can come up with something completely new. So let me hear it. What do you think? Anybody can give a modus tollens example. So yeah, just not all at once, one at a time, please. No, just kidding. But yeah, when you're ready, list such an example. Once you have the first sentence, then the remaining parts, there's no thought to the remaining parts. It's just writing the word not before something. Okay, so you say, Diane, if it's sunny, then I'll go to the beach. I didn't go to the beach, therefore it was not sunny. Okay, good example. The argument says that in case of sun, I guess you always go to the beach. And so from the fact that you didn't go, we can conclude that it wasn't sunny, because if it had been, you would have gone. So you didn't go, therefore it wasn't sunny. Okay, good. That's one example, but it's only one. So let us try and give more just to kind of finalize this. What's another one? Same format, different example. If I run, then I'll get tired. You're not tired, so you didn't run. Okay, that's a fine example too. I guess running leads to being fatigued. If you don't have any fatigue, then you must not have ran, because it would have caused it. Okay, that's another good example too. So we've got modus tollens on the mind. Now I want to ask you about the chain argument. So the last one form of deductively valid argument, chain. Let me hear from you. What do you think is the format of a chain argument? Danny, the arguments don't have to be sound unless I specify it. Like I wrote on a previous, like on the midterm, I wrote, give an example of modus ponens that is unsound. That would be like a specific instruction, but if no such detail is given and I just say provide an example of modus ponens, then it could be sound or unsound. So you'll never be deducted points because you didn't follow an instruction that I did not give. So in case I wanted you to make sure it was sound, I would ask for that. And that just means to make sure every premise is a fact, right? So anyway though, chain argument. What do you think is the form of chain argument? So we have to know this one too. Hannah, if A then B, if B then C, and therefore if A then C. Yes, that's correct. So let me write it here. So therefore, if A, then C. Chain argument. Notice in a chain argument, every statement is a conditional. Even the conclusion is a conditional. And they're connected as though in like a chain reaction. So from this antecedent, this consequent results. And this consequent then becomes the antecedent of yet a further consequence. And so if A leads to B and B leads to C, we know therefore that in case of A, C will be a result too down the line. So it's kind of like chain reaction type of argument or scenario where if one thing happens, it leads to another, and if that happens, it leads to another. So in the end, if the first thing ever happens, so will the last thing in the series. Let me hear from you some example that follows that form. So that's the format. What is a type that fits that example? You know, like if you listen to music and there's like a genre, you're like, I could ask you what's the genre, and then I could ask you what's a song in that genre. So like this is the form Now I'm asking you to give me like one specific thing that's in this genre of argument. Okay, so like an example of a chain argument. You know, just think of what type of things lead to other things and so on. You know, so if something happens, then another thing that would happen on the basis of it would lead to yet another thing. So go ahead and just think of like a chain reaction of events. It must not be the first time you thought about these things. I know that because of our long semester. It might have been the first time in a while, but the information's got to stay there. It's not supposed to go anywhere. So let me hear the information. What's an example? Workers outside making noise. Has nothing to do with me, but yeah, go ahead. I mean, look, if you're trying to make it sound, maybe that's making it hard for you. It doesn't have to necessarily be sound, just asking for an argument. So anything at all that fits into A, B, and C is going to work. All you have to do is just place sentences there. So go ahead and write an example. Okay, so Hannah, if I stop for coffee, then I won't get parking. And if I don't get parking, then I'll miss my class. So if I stop for coffee, then I will miss my class. Exactly, yes, correct. Anna, if I study, then I'll pass the test. If I pass the test, I'll pass the class. So if I study, I'll pass the class. Okay, good. In one case, we're talking about the consequences that follow stopping from coffee. In another case, we're talking about the consequences down the line that follow from studying for a test. You say, I sort of worded that weird 1 second. If I don't get parking, then I'll miss my class. Don't versus won't, it's okay. I understand what you mean. But yeah, that's fine. So like, if I don't wear a mask, then I'll get COVID. If I get COVID, I'm gonna die. So if I don't wear a mask, then I'll die. You know, just an example of something on the mind while we're all in the middle of the pandemic. So it's that kind of stuff, right? It's like if one thing happens, it causes something else. And from that other thing happening, that causes something else in turn. So back up to the first event, if it occurs, then the sequence of events will play out, leading to the last thing in the sequence. That's all. Okay, so that's chain argument. Now, let's see. I have a question. The last one from the chapter 8 section asks about what is the standard form of an argument. So arguments that are written out, I've been writing them here in standard form. No problem. So just tell me, though, if you can, what is standard form? Like, what's the standard way that it's supposed to visually appear on a page when you write out an argument? And this is important because you have to write your arguments in standard form, or if you don't, there's going to be a minor deduction of credit. So what is the standard form of an argument? Where does the conclusion go? Where the premises go? How is it supposed to be written out? And you know, you can simply refer to your knowledge or the examples that we've just all looked at here on the board. So what is so-called standard form? Standard form, let me know. See, you need to understand, it is a review session. It's not for me to teach you because I'm just guiding you guys as you're reviewing and going through the study guide. So you have to be active. You can't like, normally it's fine to sit back and take notes, but today you got to get activated. Okay, so premise, conclusion. Right, sort of, but you know, even what you wrote here is not in standard form because I guess it's impossible to display in the live chat. So you have to, I think, describe the way that it's supposed to look in a more fulsome way of putting it. So the premises, how are they listed? Can we have this? Okay, so let me ask you this. You see that? It says all dogs are white. Rover is a dog. Rover is white. Now, is that in standard form? Yes or no? It's not. It's not in standard form. Why not? So you got it, Danny. The conclusion is going to be at the bottom. Okay, so like if we have up here a set of premises, the conclusion is below them. And the premises have to be listed, okay? The important thing is that they cannot run consecutively on the same horizontal line. So when you have a period, you've finished one premise, you have to go down to the next available line, like hitting the return key, and then place the next one below it. So premises are listed, never more than one on an individual horizontal line. And then the conclusion is at the bottom, and a horizontal line separates the two. So this is not standard form. But if we wrote it as follows, then it would be. So this is standard form, but not that. You can see the premises listed, divided from each other, the conclusion at bottom. One more thing, as I'm looking at this example, what's the status of this argument? What type of argument is that? In terms of like our terminology, sound, valid, unsound. What about that one? Let me know. Just a quick question, and then we'll move on. But this argument, is it valid? Is it sound? Is it not sound? Tell me. What's the right description of this argument? All dogs are white. Rover is a dog, therefore Rover is white. Just question, what's the status of this one? Is it valid or is it sound, or what? What's the status? Okay, good, it's not sound. Right, Danny, why not? Why isn't it sound? Tell us why it's not sound. It is valid, right? That's also true, Yvonne, but it's not sound. We all seem to correctly notice that it's not sound, but I'm just asking a follow-up question. Why isn't it sound, though? Specifically? Because of which piece of information or statement? Not sound based on why? It's not sound, yes, that's right, but why not? How is it you can give a right answer, but then you can't explain the answer? It's unsound. Why is it not sound? Live chat broken. Is this thing on? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Hello? Is it just me? Are we disconnected? Am I in touch with you guys? Okay, so Sunny, because the premise is not true. Yeah, well, which one specifically is not true? It's not true, yeah, but which one? It's pretty obvious, right? Look at it. The first premise is false. Yes, come on. What does it say? All dogs are white. Have you guys forgotten that there's a lot of dogs that are not? White is not even the most common color, I think, with dogs. But there's brown, there's black, there's gray. There's all kinds of different colored dogs. So all dogs are white. Are they? No. So this is not true. But nonetheless, it's a valid argument, just because logically speaking, if they were all white, then any dog you wanted to name would be a white dog. So it's valid but not sound. You understood it was not sound. But be ready to say why. If you understand it, just tell me why. You know it's not sound for a reason. These definitions have meaning. So if it's not sound, it means that there's not all true premises. And if they're not all true, which one isn't? That's all I'm asking. Okay, good. So that's all the notes of chapter 8 just for review. Now I'm looking at some of the stuff that was in chapter 1. And, we're not exactly moving fast. I will say that. You guys got to pick up the pace. We should be able to get through more of this in one meeting, but What's the Milgram experiment? Which one was Milgram? Milgram, which one was that? That's now we're getting into chapter 1 questions for the review. Pull up your study guide too. I mean, I don't know if you're looking at it, but maybe that's what's throwing you off. If you you hear the question out of the blue, but you're not looking at the study guide list. You should have your study guide so that you're referring to it as we go through the questions. But what is the Milgram study? Because in that case, if you're not having it pulled up and you're just waiting for me to ask a question, it's like pops in your head out of nowhere. If you have the list, then you're anticipating what's the next item on the list, and you're already kind of thinking ahead. Here's what might be discussed. Plus, you should be doing your own review. I mean, I'm going to ask you these questions, so you need to know the answers. What's the Milgram study? Participants had to administer shocks to a so-called learner whenever the learner got a question wrong. Unknown to them, the shocks were not real. Yes. Why did we do this study? It was to see the effect of like authoritative commands on a person's tendency to obey. Will a person obey commands that they think are coming from some authority figure, even if and when the questions or the commands become wrong or become immoral? What was the result? Did most everyone say, no, I won't do that? Or did everybody say, okay, I'll follow along? What was the results? The study was done to see if people are that obedient. Are they or are they not? Because any mention of the study, you would have to talk about the point that we learned in the end. Otherwise, what would be the point of referring to it? Just, haha, people got shocked or they thought they were. There's a sort of moral to the story. So what were we learning in the end? We wanted to see whether people are more or less obedient to the directives that authority figures give them. And what was the result that we found out by doing the study? Or that Milgram thinks he found out by doing the study? Most did follow. That's right, Hannah. So like 2/3 of the people at least gave all the shocks. So it's kind of a reminder that without thinking critically for yourself, sometimes you'll lapse into bad moral behavior just because you're following commands that you believe are coming from some kind of legitimate authority. Okay, very good. Yes, the majority kept administering the shocks. What about Zimbardo? The Zimbardo study, which one was that? Not the one with the shocks or whatever, but which one was overall Zimbardo? That was the one that involved a different situation or a different test setup. So tell me about Zimbardo's study. Just briefly, what was it? Yeah, the Zimbardo study. What can I infer from the fact that the responses are coming slow? Does it mean that you don't know it or that you do know it and you're waiting for someone else to say it because you don't want to be typing? Micah, prison experiment that split volunteers into prisoner and guards, right? So a simulated prison environment was set up at Stanford University. People were supposed to be placed in these two categories, either prisoner or guard. It was supposed to run for 2 weeks, but it had to be canceled after just 6 days. Why did it have to be canceled? What ended up happening to the people? Dimitri, makeshift prison. Guards were told to run the prison. It went downhill very quickly. Yes, it went downhill quickly because of the bad, sadistic, and abusive, cruel behavior of the prison guards against the prisoners. People were dropping off, reporting all kinds of post-traumatic stress and anxiety from the position that they were put in the study. So when it went off the rails and they quit early, it showed Mr. Zimbardo that people have a tendency to behave badly when they think that they have social support for doing something and when they're given a role to play with loose oversight. So it's another reminder that without good critical thinking, we can sometimes lapse into bad behavior. And being a good critical thinker, again, helps to try and provide some security against that tendency. Okay, now after that, 3 stages of cognitive development. Okay, so William Perry Jr. thought that human beings develop cognitively throughout stages in their life. Cognitive development in the first place is just a lifelong process of acquiring intelligence and problem-solving ability. So who knows just the words that refer to the 3 stages of cognitive development that were discussed by Perry Jr.? Blank, 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 3 stages. Not the 3 steps of critical thinking process, but of cognitive development. And questions about this, I think, were asked before, both in earlier quizzes and in the midterms. So 3 stages of cognitive development from our textbook, they say they were called what, and what. It's something that you know, that is in the book, that is in your notes. So you have to find the information and report it. What is it? 3 stages of cognitive development. Dualism, relativism, and commitment. Yes, that's right. Okay, so dualism is the first stage. This is when a person thinks that truth is all just black and white and that authority figures know the answer to every question. So all you have to do is just listen to them and defer to them, but not think so much for yourself. So that's the earliest stage of intellectual development, like what children have. Then we get to relativism, where the person kind of has a backlash against thinking that authority figures know all these objective facts. Instead, now the person thinks there's no objective truth and that truth is just a matter of personal opinion and that no one should judge anyone else's opinions because it's all relative. But then the third level, commitment, is when you do think that there's truth to be discovered, but that you can figure it out on your own using reason and the best available evidence. So now you think that there's real facts, not just relative truth, but you also don't just think that it's up to other people to tell you what those facts are, unlike the dualist. So that's dualism, relativism, and commitment. And let's see. Confirmation bias. Anybody know about that? What is confirmation bias? This is a type of bias that people have, but what exactly is the definition? When you only do what? Confirmation bias, when a person only does what? Confirmation bias. Okay, good, Nancy. When you only seek information that confirms your already existing views, correct. So when you go out into the world looking for information, but you're only looking for information that backs yourself up and never looking at information to the contrary of what you already believe, that's a bias in favor of confirming things that you already think are true. Okay, good. So that's another correct answer. All right, now we're running close to the end of today's meeting time that's allotted, so of course we'll have to break soon. Let me make a few points just to be clear. Tomorrow, before the end of the day, that's when your 4th homework is due back to me, so make sure to send me your document whenever you're done. In terms of doing the assignment, make sure, again, that you have the first part of it, which just shows the information about what station you watched, what the show was called, what time that it and date that it aired. And then you just want to create a table of contents which lists all the different stories and like how much time they occupied in terms of minutes and seconds. After that, you'll have your analysis, which is like your whatever 2-page written report, where you're going to try to find as many course concepts, fallacies, rhetoric, misleading tactics by the broadcaster, and then that'll be your whole assignment. So make sure you have both pieces, the sort of table of contents with time signatures and a list of all the stories, and then your other document. You don't have to, in the analysis document, necessarily report on every single story that was covered if you didn't think that there was anything to find fault with or criticize. But try your best, because the more course concepts that you can display and demonstrate awareness of, then the better your assignment would be. And try to make sure that it's a show that does have like a bona fide variety of different news stories, not just like a single news hour that's all in one big topic. And then avoid like satire or comedy-based news shows, even though they're sometimes interesting and contain valuable information. So like no Daily Show or Late Night with John Oliver or something like that. Just a real, at least marketed as such, like a news show. It could be more or less opinion-based if you're using cable news, but at least it has to carry a number of stories during the news broadcast window. Okay, and that's just a few points on that. So other than that, we'll be back on Wednesday to do part 2 of this review session. Here's what I want to say to you guys, though. Oh, yeah, so the analysis I usually think of it as double-spaced, like MLA, so 12-point font double-spaced is good, yeah. And if you need more than 2 pages, if your analysis is going on a little longer, that's okay as well. So I'm not being too picky about format. The content is the main thing. But yeah, 2 pages double-spaced, 12-point font would be great. So yeah, anyway then, on Wednesday when we return, we'll be doing the second part of our review session. I want you guys to prepare for this review session this time, okay? Look back at the study guide and come ready to talk about the information so that we can make the best use of it, because it's only as helpful as you guys make it, because I'm not teaching the material, I'm helping you to review it, so then you have to provide the information since you're the ones that take the test. But I'm gonna help you as much as I possibly can. So I'm also holding office hours Wednesday like I have today, and I might also list some bonus office hours later for people who want more opportunities to review the study guide if we don't get to everything. Okay then, so let's close the stream for now. If you are all good, then just let me know in the chat that you're good to go for today, and then I'll see you back on Wednesday for the next review session, and just make sure to give me that homework before the end of the day tomorrow. Okay, so thank you, Chelsea. Thanks, Jay, and everybody else for being here and making it a productive, valuable session. Have a good couple days then, and I'll be in touch if you need anything through email. Until then, take it easy, and I'll see you soon. Okay, bye.